on Thursday, the 9th of December. Have to think what it is then. You think I know?
Yeah.
So anyway, we trust you're all doing very well. Let me just make sure this is okay. See, the music's back, you see. You're all moaning that we didn't have the music last week, so I'll put good old Pearly Lights is back on with you again to denote that we're about to start the show. Anyway, we all okay, gentlemen?
Yeah, all good.
That's it. Come on, everyone. Get into it. I know it's been a long day. There we go. Right. Hello to everybody who's also in live chat. I've got you on a big screen over here today for a change instead of on the laptop. So you are there. So anyway, good job. We're all there. Trust you're all doing very well at home as well. And the week's treating you good so far. So here we are, Plan B, which is lockdown without having a lockdown. So it's fine. So that means we don't have to do live shows every single day. So it's all right. We only do those with a full lockdown for Plan F.
Yeah. Let's just make it up as we go along.
Yes. For Plan Double D, we'll be in there then.
We'll wing it.
We're still okay for our several Christmas parties.
Yes, because obviously, we're having a mass virtual one.
It's been a mega good party if you can't remember being there.
That's it.
That is
Or sign up a good
I'll tell you
party.
what, that's a lot of
It's
cheese and wine, isn't it? Just saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, just before we start, I do have to say a big thank you to Chris. It has arrived, this lovely mug, which Chris sent to me. And I'm the fan of his paper as well. And he was basically at a flying event and saw this one and sort of thought of me, bless him. And there's a nice little picture with him and his family. Get that just in light. There we go. It's a very nice indeed. But yes, look, it's got a shark's mouth on it.
That is
Very
cool.
nice. Very posh.
Nice. So that'll be
Very
pride of place. In fact, it's so nice. I might use it actually as a drinking vessel instead of sticking stuff in it. So I normally do with all the other mugs. So yes, that's my plan. And obviously, I have been on with this one, which again we often talk about. It won't come off after I want it to stick. Nice quick builds. Say I put this together in 2 hours. It was absolutely fantastic. It's just in primer at the moment. So plan of action is tomorrow is to get it into paint. And maybe get it painted and weathered as well if I get a bit more time. If not, I'll be doing it over the weekend. And that is obviously the Battlestar Galactica, which is coming on absolutely fantastic. Have to say, beautiful kit from Mobius, or are they Polar Lights these days? I can't work out which way they went.
I don't know either. They're
It's
bit
a
of
complicated
crossover.
company the way that they do it, but they're either Mobius or they're Polar Lights these days, whatever they're calling themselves. So that's it. And as I'm talking to John before we started, obviously you're safe hands with this one because you're either a Trekkie or a Star Wars sort of fan. But Battlestar Galactica is the get out of jail free card because you can't upset anyone with that because it's just good, if not brilliant. Don't you think, John? Going to agree?
It's the second best sci-fi franchise after Star Trek, yeah.
Well, after Doctor Who.
Yeah, after Lost in Space.
Yes. Never
What-
mind.
What colour are you painting it?
To be honest, it will be a very light grey. So because I'm skinflint, I was going through my MRP collection and I'm probably going to go with a little bit of Southeast Asia bottom colour because it's a very light colour on these. So, and I just need light colour and I don't want to go white and make them up. And because as I say, MRP should be quite good for bunging all over this. And I will weather it in and do all the bits and pieces and a little bit of patchy work and stuff like that. So that's the plan of action. We'll go in with that. But like I was saying, I do love Mobius kits or Polar Light kits or whatever they call themselves this week, purely because they go together. And me and Matt were just saying, little parts really can drive you mad for one, but also, isn't it? Is like obviously it takes time. So if you are doing like Matt's currently doing headlight covers, isn't it?
Oh, well, that's about the last bit I've got to do on the truck. But yeah, it was like wing mirrors, putting light lenses on, and
Yeah.
fiddly little bits that should take you an hour top, seem to just drag on and on because you just procrastinate and do something else because it's boring, isn't it? It's just like, why? Why is it though? Why? I can't be the only one that feels like this when you get to the end of a build where it's just sticking. You just want it finished. I think. Do you know what I mean?
Do those bits at the start of the build. That's the secret.
Yeah, but I can't stick wing mirrors on and that because I'd knock them off, wouldn't I?
No, but you can get them ready. Get them all,
They are ready on the sprue,
Yes.
unpainted because I.
But you know what will happen as well? You end up losing them. When you come to it, you'll go to your pot and go, oh, where are they gone then?
I'll tell you what, I think
Because
I'd
that's
lost
what
the
happens
part
to me.
yesterday.
They're safer on the sprue.
Yeah. I did think I'd lost a part yesterday until I found it in the bottom of the box, thankfully. But the old, like the spotlight off the side, like the bracket,
Yeah.
I can't remember cutting that off at all. And then luckily it's in the box. But yes, I need a bit more organisation. But yeah, really, like John said, you could do them and clean them up and stuff first. But I am scared of losing them because that truck's probably done more mileage than the real one, backwards and forwards and doing a bit of that stuff, just potting it. So, but yeah, no, it's just fiddly little bit. I had it with aircraft as well, like pitot tubes and all these dangly bits. Weapons are the worst.
I was going to say weapons are always my thing.
Oh,
Is
they
that
just-
you
they
build
just-
the model and you've got it all looking nice and you've done all your your painting and your weathering and everything. All the final bits are on, and then you've now got to arm it. So it's like, especially if it's like World War II and stuff like that, they tend to carry a lot. It's not like a modern one where you can stick a couple of sidewinders on it and a bag, for fuel, and away you go. But yeah, I know what you mean though, because that can be a little bit, feels like you're doing it all over again. So I like to try and do those somewhere in the build rather than at the end.
That I have to agree with John. I think probably doing them first is a good call, because they all can get a bit tedious and boring as well, cleaning up seams and that. Which you don't have, obviously, if you've got Great Wall hobbies, because they're all just slide moulded in it. Or
Well, yes.
some of the others, so you just cut them off, clean them up, and paint them. But have you done your weapons for your Tornado yet? Are you doing any for it? No.
I've got to really quite right without them, does it? But I'm sort of the same. I've got the tanks here, half ready, so I do kind of take a little bit of a step. I do them, then I stop, and then so some of the stores are ready, sort of. But you're right. It's when I was just looking at doing the harm missiles, and I'm like 2 parts, and they've got loads of fins and bits. But if you don't arm it, it doesn't look right.
No, they need some bit of ordnance on there, I think, just to sort of, as you say, give them a little bit of a look, isn't it?
It is. They need something under the wings.
I've just got to say, Nate, I enjoyed your video, by the way, of you just with the camera rolling, just doing a fill and talking. It was quite entertaining. It's good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've suddenly ended up with like bits of Tornado everywhere.
Yeah, it was a Frankenstein monster of different coloured sprues and bits and bobs, but it was good, isn't it? It's like, yeah, I enjoyed it. It's good.
The irony is, this one where I didn't Frankenstein it has got bad fit.
Right.
Where it's 2 different kits, the fit's better.
There you go. So the moral of the story is buy a load of Tornadoes and then you'll get a good fitting one out of all the parts.
Yeah, cut all the parts off, chuck them all in a box, and then you can end up with you know what.
Shake it and happy days, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm building sort of in like an aircraft factory at the moment, really. Which the thing that's killing me with these builds is the cockpit. I find doing the cockpit dead boring. It's just great. It's all fiddly and lots of little bits to sort of paint. I just want to get it built and moved on, but then I don't want to use EDAD. I don't see the point in spending twice as much on a photo etch set as a kit cost me. So yeah, there's always a bit of a build, isn't there, that you just like.
Yeah, I think every build you've got that little bit that you just either put off.
Dip in it, where.
Yeah.
We all know that pain, don't we?
Yeah, the enthusiasm just dips.
Yes. Cool job. Anyway, tonight's chat was chosen by a member. It's not us.
No.
I'd like to point that out. We, as I say, guys message and they say, how about we talk about? So again, it's what we spoke about a bit before, but not fully. And obviously I think it's maybe been born about my plans for next year as well. But obviously scales in modelling, and why we do it and various things, isn't it? So from my personal point of view, next year, as obviously a lot of you might have heard on Tuesday, my sort of build list, and the guys are a bit privy to other stuff that I've added to that now as well, is all quite big stuff next year. And again, this was born out of, obviously I tried some stuff this year. I don't think it's worked particularly well and various things. So next year is to go back by doing big projects, So these aren't like the latest release kits that I've done a lot this year and things like that. This is purely bigger stuff, bigger projects, adding stuff to it, scratch building and things like that. And again, a lot of this is born out of two really distinct reasons whilst I'm going to be doing bigger scales this year coming. One is, to be honest, my eyes this year have gone to pot. Seriously, I know we joke about it with the magnifier. I can't do anything now without my glasses. Reading glasses for just doing normal stuff, even my phone, and obviously my magnifiers. Pretty much, you'll be seeing them in the videos. Is you can see there's a bit of white peeking forward. I try and crop myself out as much as I can from the overheads, but they are always on. So doing small scale stuff is not going to cut it anymore, I don't think, because I'm literally going to be straining for the sake of it, and it's going to be uncomfortable because I have been suffering with a little bit of headaches and stuff, which I'm pretty sure is just eyes. So the idea as well is that because it's a bigger scale, it means, you know, bigger parts, it's easier for you guys to see it as well. So what I don't want to think though is that we're just doing, as I got called out a lot for a couple of years ago, oh, he only does big kits, he doesn't do what normal people build. But don't forget, the whole point is that all the techniques and all the things I'm doing, you can do in any scale. It doesn't matter if it's a massive, you know, 124 scale or it's a 144 scale. It's just you're doing it smaller, but the actual styles and the different ways you're doing it are exactly the same right the way through. So that goes from the construction to the painting to the weathering, so forth and so on. So that's the point to it. But as well, just trying to show you with sausage fingers, your eyes are going, if I've got to be in that close, like Matt, because he's doing figures, you have to have the camera right in there, don't you?
Can I butt in here?
Yeah, go on.
You've just hit the nail on the head. It's not actually doing the smaller stuff. That's fine. It's actually filming doing the smaller stuff, because all I've got off of my footage is me with one of these on and my head in the way. And you can ask Andy when he comes back on, and you just see the visor or the top of my hair or something else, because I've got to see what I'm doing. So how much has been cropped out when I was doing that figure is unbelievable, because it's just like, you know, you came up, didn't you, when you were up just in the camera and all that stuff. And I can see why you're going back to doing the bigger stuff. To be honest, it's. I think it's more of a filming issue than an actual eyesight issue, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I've got the same sort of problem without strapping a pair of binoculars to my head, literally.
You know those tools you get in hospitals where they're doing, like, you know, they sort of plug in, don't they? And it's got extra hands doing it for you with a camera. That's what you need sometimes to be able to see it on camera. But that's a lot of the reason from my point of view whilst I do the bigger stuff, is that one, you can demo and there's more techniques and it's just easier for everyone to see on a bigger scale cockpit. Because again, if I'm working on a 70-second cockpit, you know, trying to get the camera in there, and by the time you've got your hand in there and a brush, there's no, you know, you can't see what's really going on. But obviously if you do it on a bigger cockpit, you can see it a lot more clearly. So you can see all the little things you're doing, you can see the placement, the various things, and it's nice and clear. And also you don't have to have the cameras so zoomed in that it's very much hit and miss. Because obviously in editing, I crop anyway and zoom in editing, but because it's digital zoom in and not obviously off the camera, the quality isn't never quite as good to a certain point. So even though everything's recorded here in 4K, it is that thing, when you're zooming in, you've only got so much you can actually do with it. So from that point of view, it's just that thing about make it nice and easy, very much straightforward. You guys can see what's going on, and also we can throw a little bit more at the bigger projects right the way through. So that's my excuse for doing bigger stuff. What's yours?
So I'm going to talk to Nathan here. How's he still getting away without wearing an optivisor? That's what I want to know.
Yes.
Right, I confess a little bit. I do see it. This thing.
It's starting to crop in where he's using magnifying equipment.
Like occasionally. I think so. I had an eyesight test and I passed it.
Yeah, but that was 25 years ago, Nathan.
That was at school.
You know, let's be honest, that's not recent, is it? Be honest with yourself.
It's not. It was 1997.
Yeah.
Because my employer at the time made me do an eyesight test. Okay. I've noticed it a bit, to be honest. Especially if I'm tired. I'm like, I wonder if sometimes I'm modelling by feel rather than what I'm actually doing.
I use the force.
Yeah, that's it.
It feels like it's in the right place. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I can certainly see it coming. The day of glasses and eyewear are coming. But I mean, I don't know. I'm going to contradict you a little bit. if you get a 48 scale cockpit, you get 15 parts to go in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get a 72 scale cockpit, you get 4 parts to go in it. And they're all roughly the same size. Because you might have to build a throttle quadrant up, you might have more stuff going in. So I think the thing with me is 72, pull the nose off, 72 scale. You know, it fits in your hand. I quite like that sort of ability. The scale that fits in your hand's quite nice. But I'm thinking next year I want to do like an ultimate 109. I'm going to do like one, just go bonkers on it. And I think the ultimate 109 is going to be in, well, it is, I know what it is up there. It's going to be in 24th scale because I want it to be the build of, you know, it's going to take a long time. And I think you need a larger scale to sort of express the detail.
Get your 1/8 one, a 1/18 one.
I was going to say, as a 1/18 one came out today, you'd be all right. If you want to go big.
I think I'm going to do like, no, 1/18. But I think what 24th scale lets you do is get more detail across. And 72 it never would it? So.
Do you know the downside of me doing the 124 Hurricane that put me off? Is actually painting it. I found it really boring. Painting it. I think it was just too big. I mean, you must have had it when you did that 111.
Again, the thing is with the 111, because it's splinter, you know, it's just you're taping it and just banging it down, and then a bit of post shading afterwards. So it wasn't too bad in that way. But other large scale models, I know what you mean though. You know, even though like things like the Hind, because it's big and it's a lot of camo, you seem to be doing it forever because it's all freehand, you know, on the 35th scale stuff. So yeah, it can be. And obviously some of the larger ones, if it's even doing like the B52, because it's, you know, just grey everywhere, you do find yourself going through a lot of paint, you know. So you buy like 4 bottles. I think when I did the VC10, originally I bought 4 bottles of, because I used Attacker, I think, with that one. Not Attacker, I used Guns paints.
Yeah,
actually I only ended up using 2 bottles, but it seemed to be a lot of paint going down on there on the big stuff. So it is the downside to it. But you know, I think as well though, you know, when you get your bigger stuff, and I think to make it look interesting and not toyish, that's what I meant where it takes a long time to paint, not actually putting your base colours down. I'm on about the build up of your layers to make it look interesting, like your post shading and all your mottling and doing all your bits and bobs. I think because it's such a big bit of real estate, I just find it a bit tiresome. Do you know what I mean? And I think
with the big scale stuff, I think it's a good thing not really have it as a side project, but do other stuff. Don't just like have your big scale project and that's it. That's all you're doing. Have other things on the go as well, so that you can just put it down for a couple of weeks.
Phil's not going to have that luxury though if he's filming it, is he?
He hasn't got that luxury, no.
You know, we have, obviously, but Phil's not going to have that. He's got to push on through and get it finished, because otherwise, with his sort of workload for next year, he's never going to get anything finished. He's going to go on and on and on. But you know, yeah, but like Phil knows as well, you can only do so many episodes before either you're going to get bored of doing it, or people probably might get bored of watching you do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because you've had it before with bigger projects, and it is a balance though, isn't it, of what.
Yeah.
How much content you put in and out and leave out,
yeah.
You know, which is obviously something I'm learning as well, really doing them. But I don't know. I am tempted with the bigger stuff, if I'm honest. Not armour, but if I was going back to aircraft, I would probably go back to 32nd, I think. There's definitely been a few kits that's took my eye, shall we say, that I wouldn't mind doing in 32nd. But
yeah, I stayed clear of anything bigger than 148 for years and years and years. And it was only last year doing that Sabre Dog, and I got into it, and I actually thought, this is quite good fun. I enjoyed it all the way through. There's nothing I got bored with.
Yeah.
And again, I think
when it came out, didn't it? It came out brilliant. Let's be honest.
It did. It looked absolutely lovely, and that's the first time I've seen you do anything big as well.
It's the first time since I was probably a teenager, to be honest, that I've done anything that big. because it's always put me off. I've always been a bit intimidated by it. But when I was doing it, I actually got really into it, and I was sad when it ended. Actually, that's why I've cracked on now with a Stuka.
The big Stuka.
The big Stuka. Show the folk at home what you're doing.
It's tucked away somewhere.
Sound. I've got the big Airfix Stuka, so this is a 1996 moulding of the old Airfix kit, and it's showing its age a little bit. There's a rough texture on everything, and there's a lot of mould slippage, so there's a lot of cleanup work. So I don't know how well you'll see it, but that one has basically been re-riveted on that side, and this one I just had a coat of primer last night, which I'll now rub down just to get rid of the texture, and then it's re-riveted it.
Very nice.
Or by hand using the
Master
tools.
Master
So
tools.
you've got your domed rivets all over it.
So when I was doing it, I thought, oh my God, what have I done here? It looks awful. But now it's had a coat of primer on it. It actually looks okay. And by the time it's had more layers of paint on it, obviously, you know, when I come to do the old cycle of sanding seams and filling and sanding, hopefully it should look okay. But what I'm doing with it basically is just in sections and treating each little section as a model in itself.
Which is
and
good
then I'll put it aside for a couple of weeks and work on something else, and then come back to it. So I find you never then really get to that stage where it's, oh Christ, I've got to do this now, or I've got to do that, you know.
I think that is somewhat of the luxury of doing bigger kits as well, as you say. You don't have to treat it like a 24th scale, you know, or 32nd scale kit, because most of the big kits, they break down, and it's usually later on down the line it starts to all come together. So, you know, that's the nice thing to it. So you can sort of say, well, I'm going to work on the front end, like the cockpit and stuff like that, and I might have engines to work on if you're doing a modern jet, or you've got wheel wells to work on, and all these different bits and pieces, which if you wanted to, you can paint and weather and do all of those separate before putting them in the model. You know, which is another nice touch as well, because it's a full-on, you know, type of kit, and you've got the room to maneuver. You can actually, you know, put them in afterwards and then do all the last-minute plumbing whilst it's in there. Yeah, if you're doing the smaller scales to do that, it would be a nightmare to actually get in there amongst it all. And especially if you're on a point of view of trying to show people, you know, if you're doing it for yourself, you can lean over it to your heart's content doing it. But when you've got to get a couple of cameras in there as well, that's where the sort of headache comes with it, of how to show it at the same time. Otherwise you just end up being miss a few and it's done, you know, for the viewer, and that doesn't really work. So sometimes having the bigger scale just gives you that little bit of movement, you know, to move. And if it has got engines, like, you know, with John Sabo, that was very modular, because you had like the back end, didn't you, and then obviously the front end as well and stuff like that, you know, for working all the different areas and the components like the engines and things. It's quite nice. So yes, definitely.
So you're still cutting mat size then, Phil, or is that
well, it will fit on a cutting mat to a point.
What, a wing? One wing?
But it's funny, because if you look at, you know, when you do big things like Lancasters and bombers and stuff like that, you know, like when I did the B-52, you know, it was one of those things where you can sort of do as much as you can, because it's all here, you know, you've got a wing and it's that big and you can sort of do it, but at some point you've got to bring it all together. And then that becomes the problem. You know, I still think you can get too big, but it depends what you're working on and how many dangly bits and knocky off bits it's got. Because some things are quite, you know, like if you're taking like Spitfire, for instance, you know, 32nd scale, it's still a lovely scale for it and all the rest of it. But as she is here, there's no bits that can get really knocked off at the moment, you know, until it's on its gear and stuff. So you can still do all the weathering and all the stuff, which we're going to do with that one later, and move on with it. But, you know, it's fine. But if you've got something like a jet with lots of engines hanging off of it, you know, that's when occasionally you have those little moments of like you knock it or you catch your clothing on it and it's on the desk and hanging slightly off, and I've done it, and you hit it, it spins round and then hits something else, your glue goes flying. We've all done it, you know, and then you're into that sort of, you know, Jesus, why do I bother moment.
Actually, you mentioned there B52. I don't know if you've seen it. Alan has put up his finished back form 148 B52.
Yeah.
And I've been following it through, and you thought, oh, that looks quite big. And then he's posted a picture of him holding it. Jesus Christ.
Yes.
It's massive.
It's huge.
There it is, hanging on the wall. There you go.
Look at the size of that.
Like a remote control scale, isn't it?
It is. It's almost
It
RC
is.
scale.
It could get in that and fly home. That is massive. It's come out really nice
It
though
did
as well.
come out,
Isn't it?
look, considering, as I
Fantastic.
say, the fight
It's
he's had with it, and the you know, let's face it, the back form wasn't the best in the first place. So he's done a cracking job on that.
Proper modelling, as we say, innit?
Yes.
And you could dig something out as good as that out of not a lot, really, into it. Let's be honest, because it's the size of your sanding stick.
Yeah, that's it.
It just looks like midget.
Yeah.
Brilliant that is. It's really come out well. I quite like the scheme as well. It's a nice, bright, colourful scheme.
It is. It's a nice
It
one. It's
makes
something
you
a little
wonder
bit different. But yeah, you think that
Yeah.
sanding stick's 18 centimetres long. You know?
Excuse me.
So,
The HBH resin one, how heavy is that going to be?
well,
Direct.
that's what we were saying. And I'm a little bit concerned over time it's going to start to dangle. But you think, to his knee and up to his head. Either that or Alan's very small.
Yeah.
But when you see it hanging on the wall, which is the best place to put it, clearly, you know?
Yeah. Does look good up there, doesn't it?
Does look
Absolutely.
good. Yeah, it does look really nice. It doesn't.
So at least
Just-
it's out of the way. It's not going to get dusty either. You'll be fine.
I think just full credit for actually seeing it through, finishing it. To be honest, because I think a lot of people would have probably shelved it,
Yes.
done a bit, shelved it, done a bit. That's commitment. So
And also, I know a lot of people who start vac form thinking, oh, it's quite straightforward. It's just some halves. I'm not going to worry about internals. And then, yeah, it's not straightforward. You know, it takes a lot of planning when you're working with vac form. And we know, like with Alan as well, he's expanding foam in there as well to give it strength. And, you know, doing that, I've tried that and busted it open. I've come in the next day and it's split, you know. It's like, yeah, too much foam. Yeah, no, hats off to you on that one, Alan. That one's absolutely lovely.
yeah, brilliant job.
Very nice
Absolutely.
indeed. It is a monster. So, speaking of which then, what have you got planned for next year?
Well, nothing and everything, as I am, because I'm not going to do a you and go, I'm going to build this, and this, because I know I'll change my mind as fast as I change my socks. But I have got something in mind for the first 2 SIGs and group builds. That's where I'm aiming to do my sort of builds too.
Yeah.
Because we set every year, and I've failed so far to do, you know, every one of them. And I think I'm going to try and do the video builds to coincide with what we're doing. So I definitely know what one of my first builds is, 100%. And John knows as well. So, but that could either fall into the 70s one or the short war one. I ain't flipped the coin yet, but I actually fancy doing a car as well. Again, fancy, you know, revisiting a car as well, or something of that ilk next year.
Nice.
And then obviously the figures. We're doing some busts, and probably I've got some more of the dragon figures, so I won't mind carrying on a bit of a series with them as well. So yeah, I've got ideas, but things change as well, don't they? You know, your tastes change over the course of the year. So I mean, me and you've discussed as well, haven't we, about perhaps tackling some of the older kits. From my point of view, especially perhaps the armour side of it, might tackle perhaps something older from Tamiya or an Italeri kit from an older one, and see how it comes out, see what we can do with it, just to perhaps bring it up to modern standards, perhaps put a bit into it. Don't know. I'm open, very open. At
The thing is, you know, with the trouble that we have, being in the industry we are, things come along and you're like, oh, I'd like to do one of them. Or we hear about something that's coming down the line and you think, oh, that would be nice to do. And that trips you up, because I can have the best laid plans and it all goes out the window. But
well, just to say your pre-planning of your building, you have actually forgot something that's due out next year. which is the 132nd Hurricane.
I know. That's why it's going to be Hurricane and Hornets next year.
Is that penciled in, is it?
Somewhere midsummer.
You can say, yeah, are you going to bother having sleep?
Yeah, that's it. Well, the thing is, from my point of view, is that, I think in some ways I deliberately do it, and then the members will push me to do it. And it's people often talk about your mojo. My driving force is everybody else saying, when are you going to build such and such? And you're like, good point, I will do it because I want to do it. And it does work as well, because sometimes somebody will literally just message me and say, you said you were going to build such and such and you haven't done it yet. And I'm like, good point, but I do want to do it, and it will just, that's a good point. So that's why I have my list now over here, my pad, with them all down in there. And again, it's all subject to change, but I've got some stuff in there, and literally I'm just looking at my stash, and some of it we've bought over the last few years, and I've said I'm going to build it. So this year coming, 2022 is going to be the year, or 2023 onwards, it's going to be the year where we go, yes, I'm going to do them.
Do you know, hey, but is that more sort of peer pressure?
Yeah, somewhat it is, but I think it's good. It's pushing, because not being funny, it's my version of a SIG or a group build.
I know what you mean.
And the thing is, from my point of view, when I've started it, I'm under a commit because I try and do a build a month. So that's the whole point amongst everything else. But I'm hoping next year I have a little bit more time as well. So I will be able to get a bit more time on the bench. So,
yeah, well, I'm going to be sort of committed to doing it at work for a little bit, as you can probably see. The what's been going on for months is about to happen as the place is empty in here. So until obviously I've got somewhere sorted in the new place, then I will be doing it at work, or I don't know, if I can find a corner, I'll be back to kitchen table modelling, proper old school when I'm at home. But I don't know, I didn't commit to it because I changed my mind too quick, I think. And also I had an epiphany as well. A real one, actually, because we've all been going on about our stashes, haven't we? Do you know what I mean? One thing or another, and like we're doing an auction and all that. And I was thinking, it's like I don't feel old, but I ain't getting any younger either. So it's getting to that, like, you really need to build what you want to build, in case you at some point you're not able to do it.
Yes.
So that's kind of been a bit of a wake up call as well. So it'd be interesting next year. Look forward to it. It's going to be good. Some good stuff on the table to do, isn't there?
Definitely. John, what new plans? Any plans?
Yes, I've
going to build a Stuka.
I've got a couple. Well, that's an ongoing one. But I've got a couple of kits that I've been wanting to build for ages. I've always wanted to do a vegan. And keeping on the Swedish theme, I've got a dragon to do as well.
So it's ABBA week.
So
IKEA.
IKEA week. Yeah.
And starting off as well, I'm going to be doing a bit of armour for a change.
Ooh.
So
is it Russian armour?
It's not Russian armour, actually. The eagle-eyed people may notice it.
I can see it.
I can see it. I know which one it is.
Look, I'll make it bigger so people can see it. Is that the 1973 version?
Hey, you can tell what somebody's been watching on TV lately.
Matthew's got us all into watching Valley of Tears.
No, it was Nathan mentioned it first.
Nathan, was it?
Yeah, it was Nathan. He watched it.
I've managed to get, and this was quite hard to get hold of, but I've got a IDF shot Carlet for the Yom Kippur War.
Nice.
It's a good kit, that is, that Centurion, whichever mark you get. It's a really, really
good. I built the one with the bulldozer one.
Yeah.
But yeah, watching the Valley of Tears, and it's like, IDF stuff. Definitely.
Do you know what? And listening to that podcast of like Al Murray and Tom Holland, it's amazing how ahead of its time that Centurion tank was. I think the Germans were quite lucky we didn't get it,
ready.
Ready before, because that could have taken anything off the battlefield. That was some tank.
Well, that's what I said the other day when we were talking about Centurions. They were saying that a lot of people say that is Britain's best ever tank. you know, obviously it was what I was saying the other week about it, but
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
people, everybody I know, you speak about Centurion, especially people obviously have used it and worked with it. They said it was absolutely brilliant, you know.
Yeah.
So
And I gather I'm building an F4 EJ as well
yes,
at
you
some
are,
point.
John. Yes, with me. That's for Phantom month.
So that's as far as I'm going at the moment with my builds. Like Matt said, I planned last year for this year, and that went all out the window for one reason or another. So
Life does get in the way, though, doesn't it? You know, it's at some point, so it's understandable. But yeah, Nath,
What about you?
I keep changing my mind. If you think about the first group, second group build, I think this is going to feature.
Ooh.
all right, okay.
This is one of those kits that, is it 70s or is it Flashpoint? I think I'm going to do a Gulf War Buccaneer. I've done the Tornado, the Jaguar, so that's kind of my thinking on that one. But the 70s build, I don't actually have the kit.
Okay.
Any of the kits that my uncle served on Art Royal in the 70s, but he left the Navy in 1975 when my cousin was born. So I think I want to do something from the 70s Ark Royal. Either, maybe it won't be another Buccaneer, but maybe a Phantom. Or somewhere out there is a 1/700 scale resin kit of the Ark Royal. And I might see if I can get my hands on it, but I think I might fall back onto a Sea Vixen or a Buccaneer Phantom. But the blooming Airfix Phantom, you can't get love the money now, can you? So
No, yeah, build a Wessex.
Unfortunately not.
could build the Wessex, yeah, but my uncle's had a picture of the Art Royal in his hallway for literally my entire life. And it's just of a Phantom being launched off the end of it. So I think
I just wish someone would do an injection kit of that, because that's the one ship that I would build.
there
The
is a resin
1970s Art Royal.
I remember, was it Trumpeter? When they said about they was going to do the Art Royal, everybody jumped up and down because they assumed it was going to be that one, the Cold War one almost. And then obviously it was the early one. And it was like, But at the time, everyone said they were releasing it. And I think the rumour suddenly started it was going to be that one, the 70s one. And everyone was like, wow, that'd be brilliant. You're thinking Phantoms, Buccaneers, Wessex, Gannets, all the cool stuff on it. And then it was like, no, actually, it's not. It's going to be the World War II one. And everyone's like, missed the boat with that one, literally. So I was sort of hopeful that maybe they took that on board.
I've got a very distant memory of Plymouth Navy Day in the 1970s and going on board it.
That's when we had a navy.
Yeah.
catapults and stuff. But I think in Fleet Air Arc,
Didn't Airfix ever do an Art Royal then?
not the 70s one.
No,
Has nobody done a like that one then?
don't think
Don't
so.
think so.
Not the
I need to do
cross-deck
some
one.
digging. There's a resin one out there that they were supposed to be at Milton Keynes Model Show, and obviously that never happened. So I had a plan to pick one up at Milton Keynes.
Right.
Never happened. But
Do you think it's wise you going down the ship route after the Mary Rose? Just saying, Nate.
it's going to be less stressful than doing the Yamato with all its guns. But yeah, the Mary Rose, the Curse of the Mary Rose, like, just I'm getting two.
Bless. So what scale would you be thinking in that, Nath? If your dream Art Royal was to come out, what scale would you do it?
This is where Pramjet's probably going to spit his feathers. I'm going to say 1/700 is a good scale for a ship.
Yeah. It is for a carrier.
It's that. But I mean, Pramjet was like Telford with boxes this big, wasn't he? But I think if you're going to do a 1/350th scale ship, it's a long build, and you've got the opportunity to add like a ton of detail, haven't you? But I'm thinking sort of SIG time scale, 1/700, just to get it built, really. Railings and not much else.
Yeah.
But as far as the Nordic SIG goes, my default choice is a Norwegian F-16, weirdly. Or a Danish one, I'm not quite sure which of the two, but an F-16, a really early F-16A from Denmark. Past that, I've not decided. The scratch build one, I changed my mind with the wind.
Scratch build one is the only one I've roughly got an idea, which when you're talking scratch building, you shouldn't really have a good idea because it should be organic, as I say, and it just sort of happens. But I've actually got that pretty much down pat what I'm doing for that. So, my 70s I'm all right because that's where my Sky Raider comes in, you see. So
All right, is that
that's my
covering that, is
70s
it?
gut. Yeah, that's it. So I'm all right with that one. So, but definitely cool job.
Good time of year. You start thinking about your next year's build, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I can't even remember what I built this year. So
I know. I was saying that to you. Well, I've got to go through what I've built this year.
Yeah, go through your phone camera to see what's on there.
I'm just waiting for Nathan to build some more armour, then lose interest so I can paint it. Mother it.
yeah, Nathan builds it, Matt paints it. That's how we need to work this. John, can you be my builder? Can you build me some nice stuff and then I'll just paint it and weather it? Cool. Right, we got any questions in chat? Because I haven't kept an eye on it. Has anybody been asking anything?
No.
So tonight.
Okay.
Pop 'em up if you want.
Oh, right. Okay. Lots of you in chat. Good job. So what do you guys reckon for scale? What's your dream scale to work with? Because obviously the thing is with scale as well, it's budget, isn't it?
Yeah.
As soon as you're into the 24th scales and stuff like that, things get out of hand. Perhaps not the kit cost, but all the aftermarket that goes in it as well. So, what's your opinion? Do you still, personally, I still think, the gentleman's scale, which clearly 48 scale, is the where I would always be given a choice. But 32nd I think is quite nice, even though I am doing a 24 scale Hurricane. But normally I would stay away from 24 scale, and definitely 18th scale is just mad. But be interesting to know what you guys think at home. What's your dream scales to work with?
Chris has said 350th, which I presume is not for armour.
Yeah, I presume that's ships.
Phil's gone for his Italeri 32 Tornado, which Phil's 32 scale tornadoes are definitely worth seeing.
Yes.
I might change my mind on big scale once I've done it. 148 for Nigel and David.
Yeah, Motive saying 48. 72nd in there.
That's the gentleman's scale, isn't it?
Yes.
I think if you're doing a collection, like you're interested in a specific air force or a specific type, there's a lot to be said for just sticking to the one scale.
Yeah.
To get comparison, like 72nd.
Again, going back, the guy who I did all those Hornets for and the Phantoms, and obviously it wasn't just me. There was other people doing it as well. There was a guy doing F-14s. There was a guy doing A4 Sky. There's somebody doing Sky Raiders, so forth and so on. It was all 148 scale. So if you've got a big collection and it's all the same scale, that's very, very impressive. I think it's all different scales and that. It just looks a bit messy. But if you've got them literally lined up all the same, I think, absolutely. It looks very, very nice. But I think still looking what people are saying, 35th scale for armour seems to be pretty much solid all the way through. And aircraft, like some of the presumed guys saying in there, is, obviously the smaller, like World War I, 32nd. World War II fighters, even 32nd's a nice scale. But obviously if you're talking modern aircraft, 32nd scale gets a bit big, especially on Tomcats and things like that, and flankers. So definitely 48 scale seems to be the ideal.
Yeah, a lot of 72 and 4. What's interesting though, have you noticed armour is far less fragmented?
No, it's universal almost of all 35th scale down there. Yeah.
Interesting, like 35th. 72 is coming out about 1/3, I think.
I was saying, I'm thinking about this because obviously I'm 35th as well. I'll be in that camp. But I did actually enjoy doing that little 72nd ambulance you gave me. But I don't think I could model in that scale as a permanent scale. It's not even that it's too small, to be honest. I don't think that. I enjoyed doing it. It's a good exercise in painting and weathering in a small scale. But I definitely wouldn't gravitate to that. Definitely not. But once in a while, it's nice.
With the armour in it as well, obviously the armour leans more as well towards the diorama people. And painting 30 figures to painting 48th or even 72nd scale figures,
Yeah.
you're going to pick 35th, aren't you?
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some cracking figures done in 72nd and 48th, but yeah, again, if we're going down like the figure painting route, for me, it's like 35th, and anything up to a point as well, probably 1/12 to the bust scale. I wouldn't want to be going much bigger, perhaps 1/10. I think that was the Richtofen one that we got out of the main triplane. I think that was 1/10. But again, you can go too big as well with that. And I mean, if your painting skills are up for it, then because you get them big sort of. I follow somebody on YouTube who does them. The big sort of Marvel characters and stuff. I forgot what they're called now. There's a name of the make, and they're massive. They're like 1/6 scale or something. And yeah, again, it's getting a bit big and cumbersome, I think.
Like Yannick's just saying down in there, he's done a few 1 to 200 scale ships, full of aftermarket, and it'll take a couple of years. Again, I think that's one of those areas where with shipbuilding, you can go big because it's not a wingy, it's quite a narrow working on a ship. But again, we were talking that, I think that goes back to doing it in sections, because ships are great for that, because you can be working on all the different areas. If it's the guns, when you're into that scale, they almost become mini models on their own. And again, you can do all the bits of people and you put it in, and then obviously all the different superstructures can be done off the model, and then you putting them all on towards the end and then doing it all. Crikey, what is that? Somebody's just trying to put in the forum. Is that a massive photo? I'm just seeing C.
Yeah, there's some sea.
I'm just seeing C on my screen. I know I'm zoomed a bit, but yeah. But I think with ships as well, they are so time consuming. That's my problem with ships. So I did the carrier down there, the Wasp, which took probably 3 times what I allowed for it, purely because of all that work that goes into it. So I tip my hat to guys who do ships of any scale, because when they're really ickle and you're fantastic weathering and all the details and rigging and as you say, all that stuff that goes onto them, it's like, wow, that's quite very, very clever for such a small thing and big. It's sort of universal, sort of tip my hat to all you guys who do those, because very time consuming. That's what we're on about, Matt, about little bits that take forever.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's probably why I've never been drawn to doing ships, because I think I would be bored of doing them because of all the little bits, the fiddly bits, and I don't think it'd keep my attention span, to be honest, by any stretch. So, but it's funny because, like, if we do model shows and stuff, the 2 things I'm probably drawn to most are the dioramas and the ships. But I'm more thinking sort of galleon ships, one with rigging and proper sort of Pirates of the Caribbean sort of things and all that lot. I just think they're fantastic. I think they're amazing.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't have the patience to do one. I don't think, all the skill. Take a lot of skill as well, don't they, to do the rigging and just pull it off, the wood effects and just the general sort of weathering on them. I mean, even the sails.
Oh god, yeah.
There's an art to painting a sail, even to make it look, like material rather than a piece of plastic. It's just it's a completely different skill set. So,
but again, I think the thing is, on the subject of scale, you've got that situation, so, and it works for all modelling, and I think that's something where it's a universal personal choice, because you get people who paint 72nd scale figures, and make them look unbelievable, absolute, and that's a skill set I could never do, because if I did them, they'd all look like Morph, and that's about it. So, so definitely very, very clever. People who, do the little mini dioramas and directs in 72nd, absolutely mad. And again, that goes up to like you doing figure painting on the bigger stuff and the busts, because then you've got to add all that detail into such a small area to make it look real, which you don't have to worry about if you're doing a 32nd scale Spitfire, like flesh tones, bit of stubble and all that stuff. There you go, one on the screen now. So again, it's very, very much one of those things where it's a different style of modeling, it's a different skill set, and like I've often said, is that I often find people who do figure painting, that's more like proper art, because it's all flesh tones and bringing it to life in 3-dimensionally. Yet when you're doing something like this, the 3-dimensional stuff's all there. You know, because you can just give it a wash and you give it a dry brush and there you go, you're basically done. You can add more details onto it, but that's, you know, you could get away with that, no problem at all. So again, and we were saying about cars, to get that in scale look with paintwork and tyres and just, you know, as I said, we often get, you know, sprues which come pre-done in chrome effect, but it looks horrible because it looks toyish. So you strip it back and you try and do it. You get guys who use metal foils, you know, that sticky foil, and they put it on to make it look fantastic. And again, it's a skill set that goes from a tiny 72nd scale car up to 1/16 scale cars and stuff like that, you know, and RC stuff and everything. And I think that's the thing, it doesn't matter. Like, I know Jamie posted up there saying about he did the Spitfire with the engine and all the gun bays open and everything else, and it was fully detailed and as detailed as you'd find on a 32nd scale kit. But again, it's different skill sets to be able to do something so small and to make it look believable, to doing it really, really big, because it's that spectrum as you're going right the way through. And that's when I think sometimes people look at it a little bit blinkered, because they'll say, oh, you just do big stuff because it's massively expensive and you can afford to do it and all the rest of it. But they don't get the point that it's no different from doing something small. You know, you could do that in the same set. And obviously, like we did the Hurricane with the little 72nd Hurricane, you know, it's a tiny little kit, but it's got loads of weathering on it, and it would be exactly the same as what I would do to something like this, for instance. You know, there's no difference in the skill set of doing it, it's just different approach, because obviously it's a lot smaller. So you're using smaller little areas of doing it, where on bigger stuff, it's bigger areas to do it, but you've still got to go through the same motions of it, no matter what scale it is. You know, and again, I think it's literally is just getting down to the scale effect and getting it right. Because again, if you got that thing where it doesn't look right, like, to be honest, that at the moment without any weathering on just looks like nothing. You know, it's nice, it's a nice paint job and everything else, if I do say so myself, and the decals have gone down really well, but it's nothing in scale. If I put that down, you'd know exactly how big it is and everything else like that. By the time hopefully it's got all the weathering on and all the bits and pieces, suddenly it's one of those things in a photo or on a, you know, just a plain background, you don't know what the scale is. And I often say that's the thing to do with scale. If you don't know what it is, the guy who's done it's done it right. You know, the bit we've seen it where somebody then puts a pot of paint next to it or a lighter, and you're like, really? I thought that was 48th. You know, and I've seen other ones and I would have sworn blind it's a 32nd scale kit. And I've seen armour and I've said, oh, it's 35th, and it's not. It's 72nd or something else like that. And you're like, really? You know, that's proper clever. When you can trick the viewer into not knowing how big it is, you've sort of, that's the holy grail of it all, really, I think.
Do you know what, though? Just, you know, like with scales and stuff, I've got to admire the guys who do stick to sort of one genre and one scale. Mm-hmm. The problem I've got, my interest is too broad. I can't stick to that. You know, I've become probably jack of all trades and master of none, because it's like, I still have an interest in aircraft. I've got an interest in like doing car kits, figure painting, obviously, the military side of stuff with the tanks, the trucks and all that lot, the diorama side of it as well I'm drawn to. And it's just like there's such a, there's not enough hours in the day and I'm never going to live long enough anyway. But do you know what I mean? It would be nice if I could just sort of go, right, I do like 135th armour, German armour, say, or Allied armour or whatever, and just build that.
Yeah.
And that would be it. Because then you just funneled and can concentrate on it. But you know, you must have it like I've got it, and it's just like you're building something and your eyes looking at something else thinking, and I presume you get it, do you, Nath?
I mean, constant scale is working well for me because I'm doing like 109s in 72 and I'm doing modern West German fighters all in a constant scale. But then I do sort of jump like all over the place, so I don't know. Yeah,
I'm more than comfortable with having more than one kit on the go. More than one kit. I could probably have, I don't know what I've got at the minute, not as many as perhaps I do have, but you know, if it's 5 kits on the go, I'm more than comfortable with doing that. Because you know, some people get bogged down with, oh, I've thought of this, that, but I'm quite comfortable with like leaving something, if I've not even losing interest, but if something's drying or something needs a bit more time, and then I can just do something else. And I know, and then there's other people who just concentrate solely on the project that they're doing. And I think, again, going back to the ships, for me, I think that's where you do need your full-on concentration. I think it's probably a hard genre where you can chop and change a bit. I think, you know,
it's just
to know where you are, I suppose.
It's like, I mean, Nigel's done his Messerschmitt season, hasn't he? He's built one subject in different scales. I've got suddenly 4 Tornadoes on the bench, a Hellcat. They're all coincidentally in 72 scale. But it is nice when you see, like I've got my 3 Spitfires up there. They're all in the same scale. It looks nice, but I'm going to be interested to see. I've never built a 24th scale aircraft ever. It'll be my first one, and it will be interesting to see if the skills I've got for building in the small scale translate well into 24th scale. How I've got to adapt. I'm thinking chipping might be different in 24th scale. I think it's quite impressionistic in 72, isn't it? Whereas
I know what
you
you're
get
saying.
scratches and scrapes and chips in 24. I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be an experiment doing this 109. Whether I get it done for Telford, I don't know.
The thing is, I think that's always been the trouble, and I've often said about it when I've done some of the other stuff in the past that's big scale. I think it's harder as soon as you get past that sort of normal scale, when you go bigger, like into 18th scale, you know, and especially like 24th scale, is to make it look believable, you have to, you know, like we often talk about layers and layering and various things to give the eye, has to look around a lot to sort of distinguish it. Otherwise, it looks like a toy. You know, that has always just been the problem. When you get to the bigger scales, and the shuttle did it for me, and that's only 72nd scale. All right, it's 3 foot long, but it's, you know, it's a big lump, that thing. But it just, until you sort of have to break it up, because until then, right the way through, it looked like a toy. It looked like a play toy. You know, so you just needed to add those layers and layers into it, and sometimes it can be a little bit sort of soul destroying when you're having to do a lot more work than perhaps you're technically used to, you know. So that would be the only thing of moving up to the really big stuff. You know, as you say, if you're moving into sort of 24th scale, which is, you know, bigger than normal, let's face it. I think like 48th is normal. I would say 32nd's getting large. 24th's getting huge, you know, and the same with armour when you're going up through sort of 35th and going to 1/16th. You know, it just, you have to do a lot more little bits like chipping, who you're saying, you know, it's that thing where you can put down the effect of chipping on smaller aircraft and it'd be fine. But if you tried that effect on bigger aircraft, obviously you get bigger chips, little chips, like you say, scratches you can be seen now, you know, as I say, scuts are seen more on the larger scales, and you sort of need to add all of those to sort of trick the eye into thinking it's real. You know, and again, we're into that scale effect where if you don't know what scale it is, that's perfect. You know, that'll be the ultimate trick to it. But it's very, very difficult when you're in a mindset, shall you say, like you're probably thinking, where will my skill set go up? I can tell you they will, because as soon as you're working onto it, everything just becomes a little bit bigger. But it's this, like I was saying before, it's still the same skill set that you've got. Is easily transparent going up and down, but I think for people who don't do it, they probably sometimes think, oh no, it's too big for me, I don't think I'd be able to do it. But actually you'll find it works quite well. You know, just maybe the thing where you're thinking that's a lot of chipping I need to do there, whereas before it was just this much area, you're now doing that. You know, that's the only difference. But I would think have a little bit more belief, because you will be fine and you will literally fly into it. If you like it or not on the other end of it, you might think to yourself, do you know what, I've done a really big one. It's been a fun project, I've enjoyed it, but I prefer doing the small ones, because again, the only thing will be it will take a lot longer.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the Tornado will fly off the bench, literally. Whereas a 24th scale 109, the cockpit's going to take ages.
Yeah, don't put a time scale on it. That'd be my advice.
See how it goes next year.
Yeah, enjoy it.
And if you want to do it for Telford, I would say start it as soon as possible.
Yeah,
I'd start now.
Do you know when you break
no promises.
Don't drag out starting it.
Yeah.
But I reckon once you get into it, you'll love it. I reckon.
I'm looking forward to starting it, and I'm looking forward to seeing if I can make the point of 24th as it should. For me, this is what I expect. It should let me do stuff with the cockpit that I can't do in a smaller scale. So it might be putting individual switches in.
Yeah.
You know, you do like the circuit breaker type stuff. You can start think about individual switches at that scale, which is 72. Just can't do it. And then the bit with the fuel pipeline, maybe put some fuel in it.
And again, it's things like harnesses. You know, you do the thing on the smaller scales, it's just a harness. But when you're into sort of 32nd and you move up 24 from that, you start making it. So it's got the individual buckles and the various bits with it. And again, it's a bit like tracks. At the time, it's a nightmare doing it because it's fiddly and you're there with your optimizer and tweezers trying to thread it all and get the lengths all right. But actually, once you've done it, you're like, look at that. That's really cool. You know, I'm always impressed with doing harnesses and things like that.
I've just had a thought, right? You know, going back to like competition, shall we say, and being judged.
Yeah.
Do you think it's harder or easier to judge, say, the bigger stuff than the smaller stuff? Like you've just said about the detail, because obviously the bigger it is, the more you can see.
Yes. Less to hide
And
behind.
hence, obviously,
Yeah.
And hence, obviously, the smaller it is, you know, obviously seen in a cockpit without literally a microscope.
Yeah.
Do you know? Do you think that does that
Yeah.
come into factor with judging?
I think it would do, because
Not to
also the thing is as well, like we were saying, and you know, you guys, because you're doing a lot of the classic Airfix kits at the moment, the seams and the joins are bigger, which means you've got to fill them more and make sure they're perfect, which is a lot harder than this one had, you know, a few little seams on it, and I just used a dollop of gloop and just pitted it round and it's filled it and it looks fine. You know, whereas if you've got a big seam line and it takes, you know, perhaps some shims in there as well and all the rest of it, you've always got that problem with ghost seams coming back. So, but because it's on show, you know, you can see it. It's a big area. You've got to make sure it's perfect. So, and again, it's things like undercarriage alignment and stuff like that, and doors and various things as well. If it's on a small scale, you probably wouldn't notice if it was just like 1 or 2 degrees out. But obviously, if it's a 1/32 scale, you know, say like a 109, and you look at it and it's a couple of degrees out, you're going to notice it's slightly on the tilt, you know, and various things that will be a lot more noticeable. So that's the only thing again. But that's what I was saying about when you get to the big scale stuff, there's less to hide behind because you can't just weather it in. Because it's too big to just weather in. If it's a fault, it's a fault, and he's doing it. You've got like a ghost seam that appears. You know, with other ones, you might think, do you know what, I might be able to just put a little bit of something in there and get rid of that because it's small and it's hardly noticeable, but it'd be very noticeable on something big. So that's the only trouble. So in some ways, I think it's probably harder on bigger scales, but on the other side to it, of course, is that on bigger scales, it's easier to sand and fill because you've got room. You know?
Oh yeah, there's pros and cons.
So,
for,
you know,
for each
again,
of them.
there
I'm not
is
saying there isn't.
the other side to it,
Yeah.
you know.
Because you know, we've all seen like some 70-second cockpits that could be pulled off as a lot bigger than what they are for the painting and weathering that people have pulled off. It's just, I've just gone about from a judging point of view, not from an actual build point of view. That was all. But yeah, you know.
But I must admit, I was watching something like you do the other day, and I was watching the original Top Gun, and it was the model makers making the F-14s for being shot down and that. And those ones were RC planes that they've been converted into studio scale models. Oh, John just dropped out. But it's studio scale models, you see. So they had to then obviously re-detail and add detail onto the kits, and then obviously do all the painting and weathering to match the real one. So, and again, it was that thing about, you know, and in those days it was like the sort of 80s, you know, so it was a lot of like just washes and things and stippling effects and flicking at it and all the rest of it to try and hide it. But again, it's one of those, they did say it's, you know, if you're doing a studio scale model, normally they're around about 2 to 3 feet, but these things were 9 foot. So, you know, it took quite a bit to make them look correct and decent, you know, for the day. So no CGI in those days. They literally were hanging them off a crane and blowing them up, or dropping them off on fire and stuff. So, you know,
putting them through makeup, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hair and makeup.
It is, yeah, definitely. So again, I think it's definitely a bit of an, you know, an artwork with them all. So yes, you know, again, but doing the small stuff, tricky stuff, as you say, working in very confined spaces, and people add all that detail in there as well.
Yeah, I just think obviously if you are an aircraft builder, the options now in 70-second are just limitless, aren't they? For literally probably everything.
Yes.
You know, pretty much within reason is available through somebody or another. So You know, obviously the bigger stuff you're limited, aren't you? Especially if you're in 24th scale, you're proper limited, really.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a bit of a different year, because this year I've done small stuff, with the exception of a 32 scale DR1. Well, that's still small, isn't it? But I sort of enjoyed the extra detail I got in the cockpit on that. Well, so this year's been about quick and knocking them out really fast, and that was good for the mojo. I think next year it's going to be a bit different. I'm going to have this 24th scale 109 just bubbling along. It's going to be it's going to be interesting from a research point of view, because I don't think you can be impressionistic at that scale. I think it's got to be right.
Yeah.
We might do the scales question in a year's time when we've all gone big and see if we all fancy going back to small stuff. But I think from a judging point of view, if someone's done like a 72 scale Spitfire,
Did someone let him in?
and put
He should have just
started it up.
He started his own call with himself.
Don't do himself.
I mean, you just get like a Spitfire in 72 that's been super detailed.
Yeah.
That is amazing modelling. But I think the danger is someone could walk past it and not notice.
I was thinking that, like, 72 can sort of look a bit lost on tables and stuff. And not because they're not good models at all, but like you said, sometimes you're just drawn to the bigger stuff. Oh, he's back. Look, hello, John. What happened then?
It is biblical out there.
Has Storm Vera hit you, or whatever storm we're on?
Christ, I think it's just hit Taunton.
Oh, right. Okay.
That was me yesterday. Internet. Bad weather knocks the internet out at my house for some reason. Don't know why.
But interesting. I'm going to do some questions.
Yes. Right, okay, so if we just pop over to the questions. Questions today. First one is from Phil. He says, hello, team. If I may, I have two questions. One, attempting to use talc, talcum powder and CA glue technique. Within 15 seconds, the mixture starts to actually smoke. Your thoughts? And then two, when using a filter, what determines the colour of the filter? Thank you. Well, the first one is, if it's actually starting to smoke, that's just because it's generating a lot of heat. It's a very hot super glue, I think, on that case. Again, it used to be that thing, if you mixed it with baking soda and things like that, that used to smoke a lot. But as I say, if you're just using talc, I haven't had that happen with just talc. But again, it is a chemical reaction that's going off here, clearly, and it's triggering it. And obviously, by its nature, if you use kickers and things like that with super glue, it gets hot. People might remember a few years ago when I had super glue in my hand. Do you? If you guys remember that, I was making a certain structure out of paper. And what I did was I managed, because I was doing it live, I had a big pair of scissors and I cut this bit of my finger, the webby bit between your thumb and your finger. I actually cut it properly bad. And being an idiot, instead of saying, look, I'm going to end the show here and probably go to hospital, I'm like, fine. So I get some super glue and think, well, just stick some super glue in and a bit of kicker. And as I say, at this point, I've got my fist under the table and it feels like I'm holding molten lead, because of the heat that's generated, and I could hear it crackling and hissing as well. So yeah, not my finest hour.
That's just stupidity.
The things you
Let's
do.
put kicker on it.
Yeah, so I just thought, a bit of kicker, and then yeah, oh Jesus, that proper hurt. But yeah, it's a chemical reaction that's going off. So if it's making heat, it sounds like there's just something else being added into it somehow. So I don't know if it's the talc. I don't know, obviously, if there was the atmosphere, if it was quite damp, making it go off really quickly or something else like that. But I know there was another question as well. So yeah, somebody else is talking about, I think Eric underneath, and he's saying about obviously using it going off really, really quickly and all the rest of it. What I would say is, if you watch my video on that I did about making up, you'll notice it's really wet mix, because it does go off quite quickly. But I've probably got a good 5 minutes work time with it before it starts to go off and become unusable. So you do want to make it more wet than dry. So start off with your super glue and then add your talc into it, you know, and then go for it. And as soon as it looks quite thick, and it's getting a bit like it doesn't want to start to move, or it's getting stiff peaks. Didn't they say that on the Bake Off? If you've got that, it's way too dry. You need to add more super glue into that and mix it so it's a wetter mix.
Wouldn't you be better off with a slower setting super glue?
Well, yeah, you can as well. And also, I wouldn't use a thin super glue because they go off really quick. To be honest, the one that I used in the video when I did it was just the magnet, the AK magnet that we flog.
Yeah, that's got like a 10-second.
Yes.
Is it 10 or 20-second sort of work time before it sets, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a 10-second on this one.
It's a 10-second one.
Yeah.
Did that sound all right though? Because that stuff's got rubber particles in it, hasn't it?
Not this one. The magnet one has.
No, the black one has.
The Black Widow has.
Ah.
Yeah, the Black Widow one has got the rubber stuff in it, but this one's just straightforward super glue, which I've been using for doing loads of stuff recently. But yeah, it worked beautifully. And if you look, oh, he's here. Buster is here. Because, you know, we did the thing afterwards, after I did that, where we've riveted it and we've actually done rescribing, and it all worked perfectly on poor Buster, and we polished it as well. And he turned out absolutely fantastic.
You need to build another one of them. There's a homage to Buster.
What, Buster 2? Look what you could have been, son.
well, you should actually do what you was going to do with Buster.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is that a 70s aircraft by chance?
Yeah.
Yeah, is it? I thought they were 60s, weren't they?
I think they were still going in the 70s, or very early 70s, I think those were.
Perhaps the French Navy had them.
Yeah, well, the French had them up until the 80s, wasn't it? And they do a French version, do it in the dark.
They do a French version.
So is that another one? All right, I'll do that for September.
It's another one.
We could do that in the 3rd week of February.
Yes, that's it, yes. Between the 13th and 21st, I'll build that one. Anyway, as for colour filters, Matt, over to you. You're an expert on filters.
Am I? Oh God, yeah, not really. But filters are just a tint of paint, and it's just to change the hue of your base colour. That is basically a filter. So I think you've got to have a colours that works with the colours you've already got, but you can go sort of to the warmer side of a filter or the colder side, depending on what you want to do. It's a very broad spectrum and a very broad sort of answer without having anything to demo. But all a filter is dirty thinners.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's very thin paint.
It's very, very thin paint. And I mean, the way to apply it is to basically unload your brush as well. You don't want it flooding like a wash. You want it controlled. And you just putting it where you want it to go. And you can just build up different sort of hues and tones and nuances and all them words that they seem to use to just change different panels if you want. And I mean, to be honest with you, your 2 big bills would be ideal for filters. Instead of masking and painting separate sort of panels, different colours, if that's where you was going, if you put filters on it, like, you know, you could just change certain bits of it to break up a big space.
And I tell you what works really well with filters as well, seeing as it's here, but sci-fi stuff. So I know we were talking about it the other day, the Big Bandai 72nd Millennium Falcon, because it's panels all over it. One of the best ways of breaking it up is to use filters. So, you know, obviously you just put them on panels randomly and go round, and then it makes it very believable because it looks like it's weathering at different stages and various things into it. So, but because sci-fi tends to be light greys or whites even in the first place, the filters show very, very easily. But obviously if you're doing like a tank, you know, it's very difficult because it's dark colours as well. So if it's working on the lighter side, I think filters work quite well. I've never been a fan of it on armour and stuff like that. I know obviously MIG and all of those do filters, enamel filters specifically for it, but I always find that it's very dark and you can't really see it. But if you're doing it on sci-fi, I know a lot of people do it with sci-fi, especially with the lighter colours of stuff. I know people do it a lot with X-Wings and stuff like that because they're very light, and it's a good way of just, you know, making definition of panels and breaking it up like we said as well. So, you know, those types of things work really well. But again, it's one of those, it's like Matt says, dirty thinners. It's not even thin paint, it's just a hue. You know, a filter just makes that almost transparent on top, isn't it? It's very, very subtle, but it does work on lighter colours especially. But, you know, as you say, if it's done right, you build them up, don't you, as well, and various things. So
yeah, because it's really, really thin, you do. Yeah, because the first probably coat, you don't really
You
see a
don't
lot of
see it,
change.
yeah.
It is a gradual change. Where obviously, I mean, you could probably compare it to probably the colour modulation
Yes.
technique, which I like with Armour. I like doing it, especially on finger colours. I just think it works. It looks terrible when you've done it. I think it looks so bad. But once you start putting your weathering in and all your filters and your washers and stuff, it just tones everything down and brings it back. So really, you'll see it on the build of the truck that I'm doing at the minute when that finally gets put up. But I've colour modulated that, and it does look very stark. But once you start putting the washers in, the oil paints and stuff, that acts as a filter as well. You see, a very thin filter when you start moving that around, and even just cleaning up the rough edges of it.
Yeah.
It'll act as a filter, then it just tones and brings it all back together. So there's a lot of ways of skinning a cat, I think they say, and from a filter to washers to, I don't know, there's plenty of other techniques as well. But yeah, it's just, anyway, going back to the question, it's just dirty thinners. I don't know any other way of describing it, because that's what it is, isn't it?
Definitely. Okay, Eric says, this is obviously talking about the talc one, all the rest of it. He goes, he's got some big holes to fill, 1 centimetre diameter circles, 2 millimetres deep. And I'm filling it by layering dissolved putty. I feel like I should be using CA or sprue goo for a quick job. But I've had bad experiences with both. They've ended up being harder than the plastic around it, and when you sand it and all the problems go with it. I'll paraphrase this because it's quite a long question. Honestly, plasticard it. Don't try and fill something that deep, especially with a lacquer-based thinner, because all it's going to do is shrink. And even because at that thickness as well, that could seriously take months to go off, to the point where you could paint your model and it'll look fantastic, and then a year later it's going to do this. You're going to have it. So like I've always said, if you, like with me especially, I will use plasticard. And even you don't have to make a perfect circle, just even if you're using squares, but that's the bulk of it right in there, because it's only 2 mil deep. And then I would use your filler just for the bits all around it, but the bulk of it I use shims and plasticard all the time, because really if you're using like 2 mil deep that by 1 centimetre across, that's a big surface. It's going to take a long time to dry out, and it will sink. So if you can negate that to a point where you've got plasticard and shims in there, even if you chop up little bits, chuck it in there loose, then put super glue on to make 1 mil layer, then you did the top bit with a filler because it's easier to sand or something. But again, have a look at my super glue with talc and use that. So fill it all up as you would, let that sort of dry a bit, and then do my little mix concoction, put that over, smooth it over like you'd literally laying concrete. You'll get 0 shrinkage then, and you'll be good to go. And it does sand beautifully. I polished it on Buster, so it can be done. It's not a problem.
Yeah, totally agree. I don't think there's any other way of doing it unless you're going down the proper car filler route.
Well, that's it.
Of putting an activator in it.
Yeah, a proper 2-part
to make it hard.
Mm.
But yeah, because just putting a hot product on a hot product is just going to cause you
reactivate it underneath
like
as well,
and you're melting the plastic around it as well, or the styrene, because
I suppose you could use something like Milliput, a 2-part, because that won't shrink.
Yeah, and then fill over it. Yeah, but you definitely need
the easiest way is to pack it out, isn't it? Like Phil said, pack it with plasticard.
Yeah,
definitely. Keep all your little bits of plasticard, all your shims, because I do. They're all down in here, and that's what I tend to use all these little bits for. So they're ideal for it. Okay, and he says another question about canopies. He's followed through the sanding sequences, and also he's used Tamiya polishing compounds, and the results are unconvincing. The canopy parts aren't very good to begin with. I remember Phil saying about dipping the canopy after masking and painting. But I've also heard people saying that goozy dipping stuff turns rubbery and gummy over time. Is dipping still a good way to do this? Phil or team, or have more clever tricks up their sleeves? Preferably a product is airbrushable to make less than a perfect job. Again, I haven't heard of Goozy going off, and Goozy's what's on my one up there, my A10, and that's the one we talk about, because that canopy was done exactly that way. It's all painted, decorated and everything, and I dipped the entire thing. Then I hand painted a coat of flat just on the framework afterwards. And it hasn't gone. And how many years is that now? 4 years old, 5 years old now, that model, and it's still absolutely fine. It's still crystal clear, and it's in daylight. It's not like it's a Cupboard Queen or something. So she's out. So dipping wise, I don't know. The only trouble is I would worry about if you're dipping with clear, that could go yellow over time, because as we know, clear does yellow. So, but I don't know if Goosey's supposed to be UV stable.
I don't know. I've not got any. I've never used it.
Enhanced Shine, which is that one, and then the dipping one is. I don't know if it's got a UV stabulator.
Let's be honest,
I've
because
got
it's
it
not
run down the side and it ain't gone yellow. Does that count?
It probably has then, if it hasn't gone yellow by now, because it would have gone. You've had that years.
Yeah.
What he's not put is actually what it's on, because
This is still clear and white in here, if you can see it, but it hasn't gone yellow even in the tub. So
if the clear parts are crap to begin with,
yeah,
you're fighting a losing battle, aren't you? If
Yes.
it's like a toilet window,
yeah,
whatever you do, you're going to struggle to get it the clarity that you're after. I mean, you've 2-pack lacquered one, and that'll clear it. But again, it's only as good as what's underneath it. It will fill some of the scratches, or that what's the GX 113? Is it?
it's had a million coats now, but I 2-pack this one.
Whichever one, yeah, whichever one the UV one is. On the GX one, you can clear coat it that way.
Yeah.
But again, it depends how good a glass. I mean, let's take your Mac 2
Yeah.
C10.
Which was like toilet window.
If it's that quality, then you are going to struggle to get a decent, or if it's an older kit with really thick clear parts.
Yeah.
I mean, most new stuff is pretty good. Even some of the short run kits, the clear parts are pretty good now. Then it's very rare you get really, really bad clear parts anymore, isn't it? So be interested to know what he's trying to do it on.
Yeah, unfortunately, like we've often said with these, if they are really bad in the first place, you're never going to get it back. And we often used to use dipping back in the day because you get small imperfections and things which would help with clarity. But if it's bad, isn't it? So,
well, you got to think, if you actually look at real aircraft,
oh god, yeah.
The first specs is crap, isn't it? Let's be honest. Half of it is proper. Not great, they go through a lot of wear and tear and all that lot, so it's not actually like the crystal clear. So
no,
don't know, depends say what it is you're doing.
I don't think once it's had sanding sticks and Tamiya compound on it, dipping doesn't get a better finish than that.
No,
I wouldn't have said so. As long as it's squeaky in it when you polish, that's as clear as it's going to get.
You need to do the inside.
Yeah,
that's a difficult job. If the thin green and white sanding sticks can get in there, that's another job polishing the inside of a canopy.
It is, without cracking it as well.
No tarp on it, that'll sort it.
Yeah, put a tarp on it, you'll be fine. He says, great show as always, looking forward to future reviews. As a 1/48 scale man myself, I can't be more excited about the Zero, the SR71 and ICM's Vietnam set. And also Zvezda's upcoming Su-25. Not as excited as John is.
John's not doing Russian anymore, are you, John? He's just gone completely off it.
I wouldn't say that.
He's defected to the West.
Across the sea to Japan.
Okay, Lee says, hi Phil, he's currently building the Italeri Duck amphibious truck. And at the moment, and the paint call out asks for flat wood. Any ideas what colour that would be? Well, that's actually a bit trouble, isn't it? Flat wood. We talking pine? We talking a nice piece of mahogany?
Well, you know what? I did read this question earlier, and best thing you can do with that is actually look up wood, or planks of wood, and you'll get an idea because they can be from grey.
Yes.
To if it's varnished like mahogany colour, I suppose. It's just I tell you what is a good colour to use, which is Vallejo Panzer Acer's Old Wood. That's a good in-betweeny sort of grey brown colour, which always looks nice, especially when you put a wash and stuff on it. That's a really nice intermediate colour of an oldish looking bit of wood, but not completely gone grey and worn out. You know what I mean?
See, also you've got a couple of different
Untreated.
ways. Like Tamiya's XF78, which is wooden deck tan. It's very
Yeah.
light, but if you've got texture on your surface, so if your planky bit, you've scraped
Yeah.
it, you know, really scratch it heavy, then you just spray it and then you just put a wash over it. It'll go in the grain and give you a grain effect. Or you can go the whole hog if you want to, do the oil trick. You know, so you do that first, put that down, and then you just use some oils, and then with a sponge and just drag it across to give you the wood grain, which we've done loads of different videos on that on. And that's quite a effective way of doing it. But if it's just an internal part, perhaps you're going to weather as well and various stuff, then you say you could just literally do anything down in there, isn't it? But yeah, maybe have a look around for some references about what type of wood. But to call it flat wood as
wouldn't it have been
opposed to
painted olive
lumpy,
drab anyway? If
Eh?
it's painted olive drab, surely it would have been, the wood would have been painted olive drab along with the rest of the vehicle,
I've
because it would
no
have been all
idea.
built and then
Yeah.
just a coat of paint. So I mean, it'd be nice to do chipping on it and make it look worn, because I presume he's on about the bed at the back, I think, on it.
yeah.
If I remember. Yeah, it's an odd call like that. Flat wood.
Flat wood
What?
as opposed to round
That's
wood.
a nothing thing, isn't it? I don't know. Like I say, it probably might be a wise idea to look up some ducks. There's plenty of
Yeah,
them around.
plenty of
do a
them
bit
on
of
there.
research and stuff, and just to see if they weren't olive drab. I can't.
I went on
imagine
the
it-
one in the Thames about 20 years ago. Does that count? It was bright yellow. I don't think it was very original, if I'm honest.
Didn't you take a finger and start chipping paint
Yeah,
off?
trying to get through the paint layers, through the coats
Yeah.
of Hammerite to get to the original colours. I think that was
Yeah.
definitely like Trigger's broom, that one.
Cool bit of kit though, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. Andrew says, hi all, sorry I didn't ask this last time, but is Andy okay? Just for people who don't know, Andy's having this evening off because it's his lovely wife's Michelle's birthday, and it's a big birthday.
It's massive birthday.
Massive
isn't it?
birthday.
It's
We can say
huge.
this because we're a year out.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's a
Yeah.
huge birthday. So he's whining and dining her tonight. If she's watching this, she
Come
just
on.
spat her
Hey,
wine out.
hey,
I should think.
Come on. You're stretching the truth a little bit
Yeah,
there,
all
aren't
right. Okay, he's probably
You know.
not. But
you? Is this
sat there with a
is this
pizza.
fake news?
So, but anyway, he is fine. He is healthy. I spoke to him earlier. He's all right.
Yeah,
But no, it is his lovely wife's birthday, Shell. If you've been
let's
to the
just-
shows, you would have met her.
Hey, let's just say he's been told. It weren't by choice. He would have been on here
Yeah,
tonight.
if it
Oh,
was
yeah.
up to him, he would have
But
been
you-
here. But yeah.
He did get told.
Anyway, he was saying he was watching Tuesday's show and he wanted to ask Phil where he got his display cases. If you watched yesterday's show, I gave out all the part numbers, but unfortunately I've now binned that bit of paper now. But they are made by Trumpeter acrylic display cases. They do all different sizes. So if you just have a bit of a Google search for that, you can get them. But I did give out the sizes and the part numbers and that for the ones that I use. But unfortunately, I've lost my bit of paper now. I've binned it.
Do they do 1 to 100 ship size ones?
I don't think they go quite that big, if I'm
Well,
honest.
that's disappointing, as they do 1 to 100 ships, isn't
You
it?
think they'll do a case for it?
Oh, yeah, and a 124 Hurricane.
Because
And
those ones I've got for the 35th scale helicopters in there, I think that's they're designed for trucks. I think they are for
Okay.
large scale trucks, because they do train ones as well and stuff. So if you do smaller scale, but they do ship cases. They do them for bikes, because I've got the one for the bike up there, which is a purpose built one for it. Didn't
Yeah.
Tamiya do them as well? Thinking about
yeah,
it.
Tamiya do them for
Okay.
cars, though. They're
Oh,
only
right.
for their car kits, about 124th scale cars, or the 120th scale F1 car when they used to do them. But I think that's all Tamiya do. I don't think they do any others.
Upside down fish tank on a 1-200 ship.
You might as well put water in it, float it.
Put it in the bath.
Yeah, that's it. Peter says, evening gents, kind of hard to ask a question about scales when it's been discussed many times and the detail in smaller scales gets better and better. So my question is, there is a particular scale range you'd like to see, either an existing or a new scale. Ooh. Other than that, we're sport for choice.
Do you know what? I like the Border Models 135th aircraft.
Yeah, they're rolling the dice, aren't they? Releasing a new scale.
Anyone seen the Lancaster yet? Sorry, I'll shut up.
Shut up. What's one of them? Who's that? Where's that?
What? 50p in the jar, that.
It is.
50p, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I do like, obviously the 109 they did, and hopefully the Stuka will see the light of day and stuff. I do like that crossover as well. So, I don't know.
I always like it. 35th scale, I actually quite like it. I think it would be, because obviously it makes aircraft a little bit smaller coming from 32nd. But like we said before, if everything was 35th scale in that range of aircraft, helicopters, armour, figures, you've got so much scope for doing little dioramas and that. And it's not a massive stretch, you know, to do it. So I wish that, because obviously helicopters are mainly 35th, occasionally some Wally, like Fly with my Wessex did a 32nd scale one, but 35th scale is a nice scale for helicopters as well, for large scale helicopters. So I wish it was more standard that way, definitely. So, you know, instead of 32nd scale aircraft, I wish it was 35th, just to make it go along with everything else. Or all the armour guys made it up to 32nd, did it that way. That's my only thing. But
it will be interesting to see if they do anything after the Stuka, because obviously the Stuka was announced a while ago, wasn't it?
Mm.
And you just wonder whether they are developing that idea any further.
I think they've been a bit preoccupied, to be honest.
They've been a bit busy to get the Stuka out.
With something else, but yeah.
Lawyers have been keeping them quite busy.
There's a bit of back and forth going on, I do believe.
But it has actually come back to light, though, the Stuka, to be honest. There has been some stuff back up about, you know, them doing it, so hopefully it will do.
The only reservation I have with that, going that route, is none of the aftermarket people have jumped on it yet, have they?
Not.
I think this is scale prejudice. That's what I'm saying, because let's be honest, it don't take long for companies like the aftermarket guys to jump on anything that's released.
Yeah.
And yet that 109 has had nothing. Not a set.
Not even a mass set.
Not a mass set.
No.
Nothing at all. And that is like, that's to me just, well, it's not the right scale, so we're not touching it because it's not 32nd or 48th. Could be wrong, but that's, don't know.
Weird, isn't it?
It's very weird. Like, nobody's even got on board with that. There you go. There's an opening for companies here, isn't it? If they want to start a mass set company for A1.
Just going on from what David just said in chat, I was reading this afternoon, actually. It was Tamiya 135th scale. They started it, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tamiya was
Was it the Panther they did first with the batteries in?
Yeah, it was the battery ones, wasn't it? The power
and
ones.
Then they just, whoever, Mr. Tamiya then decided to keep them in the same scale. So they measured the Panther, and that came out 135th scale. So that's what they carried on doing everything.
And the reason it's 135th scale is because it was the size of batteries that fitted in it.
Yeah, the batteries, yeah.
Yeah. I must admit, if you read his book, he does say about that. The reason it's that scale is because it was the size of the battery. So it's like, it's so simple when you think about it, but, you know.
Hey. Yeah.
But now the batteries have long gone. That's why we got left with the scale. So, interesting. But no, as you say, I think scale is just one of those things where, sometimes it works really well. And like 35th scale for helicopters, I think is brilliant. But as I say, I just sometimes wish that aircraft were 35th rather than 32nd, because as I say, it's a tiny difference. It's only as we said, like a centimetre shorter on a big scale aircraft. So, it's not too much in it. Adrian's thanking that I think he means his mug's turned up, and also it's nice to see Andy with a smile on his face.
Right, can he see something we can't?
I'm sure that was wind.
Was that yesterday?
Yeah, was that yesterday? Yeah. You missed the bit. I had to edit it out when you had to go and answer the door. We were sat here like tumbleweed for half hour, waiting for him to come back, listening to him coming up the stairs. So we were having a whip round at Christmas for a stair lift or a come along.
Tell you, it's a good job we were on.
Right, Brian says, hi Phil, just wanted to say a big thank you for the delivery of the mug. Arrived today, it was great with the 2020, the 21 mugs. Will there be a Flory Pigments mug for the 2023? Or did I miss that? Did it come out before I became a member? No, in theory that's the next one, which will then complete the set. But after the breakages and trouble we've had with this lot, I'm losing the will to live with mugs. If I don't see another mug, I'll be very happy. But that's the plan for next year. By then, it's like toothache. I would have forgotten about it, and we'll do it again. Paul says, "Hi gang, hope everyone's doing well, especially Andy. A question, if I may. I'm planning on some Navy Marine aircraft for the 70s build. What colour do you use for the grey? That's Federal Standard FS 36440.
Light grey.
Or actually, if you want to be thinking, it'd be 26, because they were done in semi-gloss black then, if I remember rightly, or satin, as we would say in the UK. But yeah, it's 260440, which is gold grey, light gold grey. And dark gold grey, which is technically Tamiya's XF54, is very close to it, would have been the cockpit colours.
They're in the LP range, aren't they?
Sorry?
Are they in the Tamiya LP range? Got those now?
No, they've got ghost greys in that one, I think, isn't it?
I think everybody else has got it though.
Everybody else has got it, yeah.
Guns, isn't it?
Guns do it.
Guns
Attackers
do it, yeah.
AK,
Everybody does it.
MLP, everybody does
but
it.
it's
Yeah,
basically, you can use insignia white if you like for the underside, but you can just get away with white because by the time you've weathered it, it doesn't make any difference. But it's basically, they're all in what we call high-vis, which was white with thingy. So think Tomcats, Corsairs, Prowlers, Intruders.
Crusaders.
Yeah, everybody, they all had it, were in that one. I think it was in the 80s they moved over to grey.
Did Phantoms have them in Ivis?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Phantoms,
Skyhawks.
Skyhawks, yeah.
Sky Raiders.
Yeah, Hawkeyes,
Everything.
C2s.
Everything.
Yeah,
Everything.
literally everything was in that in those days. So, yes, very good.
Yeah.
Enjoying the family atmosphere. Very helpful, informative and funny videos. Thank you, Paul. Our pleasure.
Watching
Last,
us.
I think he was watching somebody else, but we'll pretend
Yeah,
it was
say
us.
watching us, isn't it?
Okay, last question is from John. He says, "Hi Phil and team. Phil, I've been following your quick build of the Revel Spitfire and just wondering, do you still going to intend to do the weathering like you did with the Tamiya?" Yes, I will. Because obviously these are going to probably be my last two of the year. So this thing is going to be this week, hopefully be done. And then next week I'm going to do this one. So it will have a wash. We're going to do some post shading with it. Then we're going to do the oils and the bits and pieces to the Southern Standard. And then we'll put it together. So it'll be finished off. So yes, they're my last two of the year in theory. So we'll be doing that one. He says, also, as I only build 32nd planes and 35th scale choppers, I was happy to hear you say you were introducing more large scale stuff next year. I'm hoping that the Hornet and Eagle builds will also be in 132nd. Well, the Eagle will be, because it's here. It's the one that we got in as a special. Would have been last year now, wouldn't it? So that's here as well. So that definitely is going to be the Hornet. Although I have got all the Hornets, in fact I've got another one coming tomorrow, in it. I was planning on actually doing the Hobby Boss one. So I might do two together as one, because I want to do a Growler and I might do an F, because I've already got an E up there.
Can you rephrase how many Hornets you got coming tomorrow?
All right, I've got maybe, what was it, 5?
How many?
6. Yeah, 6. 6 Hornets tomorrow. Next year I'm going to have months, and they're going to be like Hornet month, Phantom month. You know, that's how we're going to run them. It's how my life's going to be. So, anyway, so that's the one for that. Anyway, he says, keep up the good work. Wishing you all a very Merry Christmas and all the best for 2022. Well, look, that's basic. It can't get any worse than this year's been.
No, it's cool. Yeah.
Another car crash.
Hey.
So yes, that's it. I'll just make sure I haven't missed any questions. Nope, we're all good. Sorry, Ted.
Just answer Russell. No, we don't stock ammo. I'm afraid we're in the AK camp. And
the book, David, he's saying about the Tamiya book, is actually Mr. Tamiya himself wrote it. To be honest, I used to read. When in a different life, I was a prolific reader, and that's when I didn't have a life. And so I did read his little autobiography, and I think it's just called Tamiya, if I remember rightly.
I don't know.
The book.
You're not it, Nave.
I've not got that one. Imagine if you do a search on Amazon,
Yeah.
Tamiya as an author. I wonder if it comes through as the author search on Amazon rather than a general search, do an author. If you're on scale, mate.
I have to find it. It must be up in the loft. I must admit, I don't have a library anymore, so my books are all in a box in the loft still. I think I'll have to go digging, see if I can find it.
Christopher's put us onto AK set number 47 for the Navy stuff.
Right, there you
And
go.
Chris put a question up ages ago about what we think he should build next. Either an M1A1 or a Fletcher class destroyer.
M1A1.
The Fletcher class destroyer, that's a nice one. Is that the Tamiya one?
I'm not sure.
No, it'd be the Revell one, wouldn't it?
Is
Is that the boat that was in the Tom Cruise, the film on Apple TV?
Oh, you're Tom Hanks.
Is that a Fletcher class
I
destroyer?
don't
And
know.
No,
Interesting.
no,
Yes,
it's-
Tamiya
Just for
body-
Hataka, sorry, it's C048 for light gold grey, which is 36, as we were saying, 440.
Yeah.
Just happen to have one here.
I think a Fletcher class destroyer would be a nice build.
I think
Oh,
that'd be
They
cool.
got absolutely hammered, didn't they, in the Atlantic?
Yes, Tamiya did do it, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh, it is Tamiya's, yeah. Interesting. No, do the M1A1.
No, me and Nathan are going to say go for the ship.
Just the ship.
What do you reckon, John? You can have deciding vote.
And Soren's asked, are we doing Christmas Carol singing this year?
Well, I'd like to, but Jesus, can you imagine us singing?
Unfortunately,
We're
out
going to
of
be the Barbers, what's 5?
Barber's Quartet.
Yeah, but we're not quarter, we're not 4, so we're 5. So what are we, octagon?
Quintet.
9 o'clock, isn't it?
A what?
Quintet.
A quintet,
Quintet.
is that
It
it?
would be called Quintet. Is that what it is?
That's it. Do we all need striper hats and straw bowlers?
Is
Yeah,
that
that's
the
it.
baritone? Is that what it's going to
Or do I have to dust off my suit? Like Pavarotti?
Think about booking for some singing lessons. Never mind anything else.
That's alright, we'll
Costume-
dub ourselves
Hey.
with somebody else.
The costumes are the last of our worries.
put 3 on the Abrams film? The
We
Abrams
could sound-
is being built now.
Hey, we could sound like the Bee Gees
We
So,
could,
you
you know.
reckon you could get that high?
singing carols, probably.
I don't even sing when I'm drunk. Mine's sober. Oh, it's tied now.
Oh, that's it.
That's
I
it.
just advise never put like what you should build next to the forum because you end up having to do Costa javelins. It never ends well.
Yeah, it's
I'm quite
yeah.
good because if you remember, I put one poll up this year with all what to build, and I built them all.
Yeah.
Because I actually went back and did the truck. Because originally the truck didn't even get a look. I think the Cobra didn't get a look at that point, so I went back and did them afterwards.
Who was it who did the javelin for the turkey shoot weekend? That turned out lovely.
It did. I'll tell you, that was an absolute cracker. That was.
I'm
Very
just
nice.
sitting on it because I think if I wait long enough, Airfix will do a 72 one.
If
Good
it
luck
waits
with
long
that.
enough, it'll just disappear. It's a puff of smoke.
I just wouldn't worry
Don't
about
forget-
the vortex generators. Nobody else has.
Hey, don't forget there's an auction coming soon.
I can auction this.
Yeah,
Part started.
part started. Yeah, there you go.
I could sell you a 48 scale one that's been part started. I say part started, it demos the wash.
You know what though? If anyone is from Airfix is listening, it does look nice in that scale.
It does.
It's a good size. Just sow that seed.
Have you put this to Pranjit and said to him, look, what's
No, I
your
don't have actually. We just keep mentioning Wessexes, don't we, every time we see you?
Yes.
Wessex.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
we have gone past. It's 12 minutes past.
Yep. Cheers.
So we better back out of here whilst we still can.
Yeah.
I'd love to start singing.
Yeah, before we start singing, or I get in trouble. So I've been on my best behaviour tonight. It's fine. Right. So anyway, we just have to say before we go. Obviously, can we take a moment to thank Matt's shed?
Can we have a minute? Can we have 2 minutes silence?
2 minutes silent because Matt's leaving his shed in a few days'
Tonight.
time. And
Tonight.
this will be the last broadcast from the shed.
It will.
It'll be handed on to the next tenant or the next owners. See
Yep.
what they'll do with it.
Knock it down, probably.
And they'll have no idea what's happened in there before.
No. No, what memories it's had, but
It
yes,
has,
it's time
yes.
time to leave and go. So
Yes.
yeah, it's been good. Been a nice space, I have to say. I am going to miss it.
What, the bit where you're complaining where the sun's coming through the door and bloody burning you alive? Or
Yeah, I don't miss
in
that
the
bit.
summer, freezing in the winter?
No, it's always warm in here. It's that, as I was saying to John, it's the traipse across the back from the back door to here.
Hmm.
He's not far, but when it's raining, it's not pleasant either, is it?
No.
Squelching on the grass and all that. I won't miss that bit, to be honest. But no, it's been a good space. I've built some nice stuff in here as well. So yeah.
Definitely. They're just saying in there, the new owners would be wondering what the big hole in the wall is behind you.
Yeah.
Oh, they are, yeah, because I don't know if they ever noticed that. When I pull the extractor out tomorrow, that'll be, oops.
Yeah, that's it. Leave them with a big hole in there.
Like get some thingy foam.
Yes, get a bit of expanded foam in there, quick.
Expanded foam and quickly fill it in.
Put a poster over it, it'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Be fine.
Right,
Cool.
okay then guys, we're out of here. I'll be with you tomorrow. Part 1 of obviously this little lady will be up with you with the Battlestar Galactica. That will be up. I've got a load of stuff coming in. I know Matt's got a load of stuff coming in tomorrow as well. So we've got various bits and pieces. Next week it'll be full on reviews and talking about kit releases and all the rest of it because it's all turned up. So we'll be going through a lot of that one, and I'll be doing the catch-up show, and obviously I'll be doing the gallery. So if you're going to pick your photos up, make sure they're up before 9 o'clock in the gallery sections, and I'll grab them for the final reveal at the end of tomorrow's show. So until tomorrow, everybody, say goodbye. We're out of here.
Bye.
Oh, wrong one. Hold on, that's the blue one. There we go. Close. We're out of here.
Bye.